Hello and welcome to Spooning with me, Mark Wogan. Each week I'm joined here at the Mount Street restaurant by a very special guest. And Jamie Shears and the team here look after us marvellously, cooking up some fantastic food where we challenge what people think they love and what they think they hate. This week I am joined by someone who looks fear in the face every single day. They are an activist, a comedian, a marathon runner, an actor, and they're just about to take on Hamlet, no less. Will you please welcome Eddie Izzard?
Thank you very much. Very nice to see you.
Lovely to see you. I cannot thank you enough for being here.
Could I say meet you? Have we met?
We have met before, briefly. We met last year. We met last year at Carfest. I was feeding people pizza at Carfest last year.
Yes.
For the uninitiated, which I may be slightly on the edge of, because I avoided education at all costs, hence I ended up in the hospitality industry. This version of Hamlet you're doing, there's 23 characters you're taking on.
Well, yes, there are. I think there's about 22 characters in the play, but there's 8 main characters.
You think? Do you know?
No, because we have excised 1 or 2. My brother, who did the adaptation, and he did On Great Expectations, which was a big hit.
Which was 19 characters.
Yes, I mean, in the end, I wouldn't obsess about the 19 and the 23 because it's the main characters that are the important things. And it's about the similar amount between Great Expectations and Hamlet. But we have upped the ante. You would expect, seeing as I've done a hit Dickens adaptation, I'd do another Dickens. That would be the next logical move. But we jumped to Hamlet, and that is really doubling down.
Because that is the play. If you are taking on Shakespeare, that's the play.
You could put Lear in there. You could put others. Romeo and Juliet. There's a number of big hit plays.
But there is that thing.
But Hamlet,
they talk about people's Lear and they talk about people's Hamlet.
Yes, it is. It is for a young person like I am. It is. It is a great role to go for. And when we started doing open rehearsals on this, you see. So we actually invited the audience in very cheap tickets, come buy a ticket, come and watch me do an early version of Act 1 with the strip lights on in the rehearsal room, and then do a Q&A afterwards. And that had a very positive reaction. And that has led to this, which we've now launched through America, New York.
But it has had an incredibly positive reaction. I mean, you had to add dates.
Yes, we triple extended. We triple extended just in New York. We extended once, then extended twice in New York. Then we changed theatre and extended in New York from the Greenwich House Theatre to the Orpheum Theatre, and then we went the Chicago Shakespeare Theatre. People came down and they saw it and they said, "Would you like to come to Chicago before you go to London?" So we went up there for 2.5 weeks and got completely rave reviews there. Obviously, we were more in the saddle at that point, and I was very confident of the piece. And now we bring it back home to the hardest critics. Your home critics are your hardest critics, and your home audience will probably be the hardest audience.
But your audience, I mean, you've been so popular for so many years.
Well, I did start, even though acting was my first love, dramatic acting was my first love, comedy is what I got known for. So I developed, say, a comedy audience who were tuned into a surreal type of comedy, very Python influence, Monty Python influence. But then I had a separate dramatic agent. You may not know this. I had a comedy agent and an acting agent, which is quite unusual. And I've been driving these 2 careers out, of which the comedy was better known. But I've been bringing the drama up and up and up and up and up until we get to Hamlet now, which is in a beautiful place. And so I've been encouraging the audience to understand I will be doing dramatic things. This is William Shakespeare's Hamlet. This is not a comedy version of Hamlet.
So you were very much part of my early courtship with my Susie, because she was such a massive fan of yours, and I wasn't, I have to admit, at that point.
Your Susie?
My Susie wife.
Oh, right.
My Susie wife.
You've got to add in wife there.
Yes.
Your Susie is like, you have a Susie.
I've got a Susie somewhere at home.
The audience all knows about your Susie.
Yes. Well, maybe they don't.
Does she spell it the same as I spell it? Is she a Z-I-E or an S-I-E?
She's S-I-E. She'd be an S-I-E.
I'm a Z-Y.
You're a Z-Y.
Yeah.
But so my Susie introduced me to you, and going and seeing you live was very much part of our early courtship, which is now a long time ago.
Yes.
Because we've been together 25 years. And those early performances, it was so sort of groundbreaking and different to anything outside there. And you,
do you think so? Because I don't think I was groundbreaking.
No,
I just think I was doing what Monty Python did, but in a
well,
stand-up
yes,
version.
and you've said that also Richard Pryor was an
Yeah.
influence as
Yeah.
well, but the ability to do all the different voices as well, that's something you've always
That was a sketch
loved
comedy
doing.
influence,
Yeah.
and that was unusual. I watched Richard Pryor, and if anyone watches Richard Pryor, you can watch Robin Williams as well, or anyone who does Billy Connolly. Usually when Billy or the other two have passed away, unfortunately, but doing characters, it would be talk about a character and usually broadcast forward, saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And they would present the character forwards. Billy occasionally would talk to someone else, but usually not necessarily have the other person talking to them. And Richard Pryor once had two African American guys going hunting, and he had them talking to each other, doing a quarter turn, saying, "Have you got the gun? Hey, got the gun. Where's the gun? It's in the car." And I just thought, oh, I could do that, this kind of quarter turn. And I thought he did it with lots of characters, but in fact, he rarely does that, it seems. And having seen one little thing that he did, and I loved his stand-up, it's very strong.
Well,
I
he
thought I'd bring
changed
that in.
stand-up, didn't he? He changed how stand-up was perceived.
I don't know quite if I would say that. I think all of them around that generation were doing it. I mean, his was very strong, and he was very open, and he would swear as much as he wanted to. And I mean, he was playing in brothels, and with mafia guys running the thing. Those were his early gigs. So he came with a sensibility that was very raw, and for an African American audience, it was great. And he would talk about white people as the other, which was unusual. And then he became the big hit, and Silver Streak and on with films with Gene Wilder and on his own. So it changed everything. But I'm not sure if his style actually changed stand-up, or whether it was just a great beacon out there, a great light that was shining bright in it.
There's a long sort of history of Hollywood sort of embracing what would be seen as comics, and you were sort of drawn into Hollywood essentially, people would think, because of your comedy.
Yes, I did. I mean, I broke into Pinewood Studios when I was 15, so I really did want to act in films. And I think I was lining myself up. Initially, I wanted to be a dramatic actor. Dyslexic, so if you ever did a role at school, anyone doing roles at school, you will be given a piece of paper with here's the lines to read out, and you will have to sight read them. They will not, well, maybe they do, but mostly they would just say, do that now, rather than go away, learn it, get it in your head, and come back when you're feeling it. Just sight read this, please. And can you possibly be if you're growing up as a boy, a tall boy is good because that looks kind of like a man. Small boy, that doesn't quite fit. Okay, you're jailer, I kept being jailer, butler, anything but, and I couldn't sight read very well. So they gave me no roles, and I decided to dump drama at that early age in my teenage years and concentrate on comedy. And Monty Python was a perfect role model. They are my gods on Mount Olympus because they not only did the TV shows and all the sketches, and I felt I could play a character like this.
It was the records for me.
It was the records as well, but then it was the films as well. And so the film career, which I wanted, it was all there. But then I just couldn't get to first base on the base.
Do you have a favourite Monty Python film?
Well, I felt I was closest to Michael Palin of playing the characters that are quite disparate. Playing someone who is like this, someone who's much more like this, and someone who I could just change the voices and the physicality of the characters. So I felt I felt very close to Michael Palin and how he did his characters, but all of them in some way or other influenced me, and the surrealism of it. I loved it. The Goon soaps, which is Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers and Harry Seacombe, and they had influenced Python. So at the same time I was getting Python, I was also getting Goon tapes that my dad was giving me. He was recording off the radio. This was being played from Radio Dubai, which I told Spike Milligan because he found this very odd and unusual.
Because you grew up all over the world.
Yeah, Dad kept working in refinery stuff. He was an expert in refinery accounting, or he made himself an expert at it.
But also quite sort of bohemian, your father. Or
I wouldn't.
I've heard him described as a little bit hippie-ish.
Well, I like to make Dad as I would like Dad to be a rock and roll dad, but he was more straight up and down. But he was open-minded. He didn't believe in a floaty god. And there was no religion at home, but there was just, be nice to people, treat other people as you'd like to be treated yourself. And he was, and I liked him, and he was an easy person to get on with, and I was 80% like him. But he wasn't that much of it. He wasn't really a jeans guy. He wasn't really I think I wanted him to be more rock and
I have
roll.
this vision of a man in beads and flares.
Yes,
with
I
some
know.
sort of
That wasn't
goat
quite
type
that.
bag.
But, when I told him I was trans, he said, that's okay. And if your mum was still alive, she'd be okay with it. So that was very groovy, Dad. So his mind was in the right place. I think
But obviously
what I
a lot
did
of love
bamboozled
there.
him.
A lot of love and
Yeah,
acceptance.
and we didn't say that much, but it was there, and he was very supportive.
Where do you get this, quite frankly, ridiculously tenacious side of you?
It might be genetic.
Because
Let me answer this. I think I might have a determination gene, but I did, when I saw a play first one in January 1970, The Boy with a Cart by Christopher Fry, about St. Cuthbert, which doesn't sound like it's going to grab you, but the audience reaction was huge, especially one guy was getting a great reaction on stage in Eastbourne at the school, Bede School in Eastbourne, and I remember it, I feel like I was there watching it. It was 2 years after Mum died, and I've analysed that I swapped the audience's affection for Mum's affection, and I thought I need this. And I pushed very hard from that time on. But I was very determined in trying to get in, even though those opportunities were there. The idea of being a professional child actor, I didn't even know existed. So if I'd known that it existed, I might have run away and joined a troupe. But anyway, I didn't.
because some of those child actors can be dreadful.
It can go wrong, but some go on to, Elizabeth Taylor went all the way through. Some go all the way through, and some blow up.
It's like a very old friend of mine was original cast member in Oliver,
Right.
in the West End show, and in the movie as well.
Right.
He's the only one who's still alive.
Really?
Because there's such a sort of darkness to that whole cast.
Well,
as to
especially
what happened to them.
if it goes well and there's a lot of light shining on you, and then that light dissipates away, and
But this
so
tonight,
it was good for me. Well, I mean, I tried and tried. I learned stamina, and basically, at 7 I wanted to act, and at 30 my career took off. So you could say there's 23 years, not of always pushing all the time, but doing very weird things. Breaking into Pinewood at 15, having worked out where it was by getting a map and studying all the the titles at the end of films, and worked out where Pinewood Studio was, and tried to get into a film that way. And also when the school choir, which I was not in, did. Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, which I'd heard the music, and I thought this is really grabby music. I want to do this, and I just turned up. I wasn't supposed to be there. I just turned up and stood at the back, and I thought I'm going to stand there until I'm in it, which is very weird at that age of 11, I'd say, and I ended up being in it. What happened was that as soon as the teacher, who was I think the choir master, said, "All right, you." Kids in the choir, you're gonna be doing some of the roles. We'll just move this table, and I ran forward and moved tables, and they obviously thought, oh, that's the kid who's been told to move tables and stuff. And I made myself stage manager, I think. I remember that first moment, and I remember the end moment where this teacher, Sam Gray, who was quite influential for me, and he was playing the Pharaoh, and I had one line. I had to ask him, What's happening, Pharaoh, or something like that. And then he sang his Pharaoh song. And then I sang in the chorus thing. And I remember I was in there as a helper of the Pharaoh. So I would inveigle myself into situations. And I would do real long shots to get on. And I did 12 Edinburgh festivals over 13 years. So I built up stamina. And I think I had the determination gene, but I had this idea that I could do something that would really work on a world level, which is really weird when it wasn't even working on the first level. For a long time, I didn't work on the very local level, just people around me, it just wasn't working.
but it's retaining that sort of individuality whilst pushing forward, and it just seems to me anything that seems fearful, you go, I'm doing that.
Not quite that. If it is fearful, like jumping off a cliff onto a spike, pretty fearful.
Yeah.
Not in my things to do list.
Jumping off a cliff with a parachute attached to your back?
No.
But I read you had a fear of flying.
Yep.
So you
Learned to
learnt to fly.
Seems very
and you have
practical
a
because I have to
pilot's
do a lot
license.
of, yes, and it means that whenever I get in a plane, when the undercarriage comes down, which nobody gets told about, that's quite a noise. And I go, oh, that's good. We need undercarriage. I now know what it is. The buffeting, bumpy air, bumpy road. I can put the analogies together, and I'm not scared about them. I used to just get so scared.
But also starting a career in the public eye as openly trans in a period where that just wasn't a thing, or there was no understanding of it at
absolutely.
all.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you?
Well, I started without telling. I told all my friends I was trans. We were using different language at that time, but essentially being out from 85. But my career started taking off in 1991. So 91, I thought, I'm going to tell the press this in an interview with the Observer. And I said, if I get it out, then I can't lie about it from then on. I'll be open and truthful about it. So that was my big idea. I'm just going to have to deal with it. And it could have taken my career out that I'd been pushing for so long at this point. It could have just, what was that, about 20 years
But
there.
that's what I mean
It
about
could have,
fearless.
Well, that was brave of me, because I remember thinking this could just blow it out of the water. But I felt it was better to be in this world of where lying in politics has seemed to have no consequences.
No.
I just thought lying in life. I just thought, let's be truthful about this, and fortune favors the brave, I decided, and let's go for it.
Isn't it strange that, as you confronted that early on, there's been a sort of cultural shift now, but going to that thing about, which is another passion of yours, which is politics, and
Right.
we're sort of, everyone who sort of crops up and seems to get into a position of power now, there's a sort of almost a dishonesty attached to a lot of it.
Well, I'd say it's this. If you think about your CV, your resume, CV, you're putting forward your job, you kind of embellish as much. You put it in the best light as possible, and that has happened in politics. If you take the Soviet, if you take the Nazi times, and the Soviets were there at that point, even though they became our allies and things, you got to pull Stalin out of this, or put Stalin in a separate box. But if you take just the Nazis, they were happy to lie. Whatever we say is the truth. This is what Hitler said. We can lie left, right, and center, no problem. But Hitler, maybe it's a bit of a lie. Oh, don't have a problem with that lie. Just put another lie on top of it. And because they felt that's what they did. That was their propaganda. And when you get into wartime, then people do lie, because you have to protect the truth. And this is what Churchill said: you have to protect the truth with a barricade of lies. But after World War II, if you think about it, everyone went to, let's try and be upfront and honest about things, about this endless lying. So you went into a whole period that spent about 90 years of people trying to sort of essentially say, this is where we are and this is what we're trying to do. And then there's people like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump turn up and said, no, let's just absolutely lie about things in that old Nazi style.
But do you think that's, if you take the pandemic and lockdown and it almost being in a war-like thing, and someone like Boris Johnson being so obsessed with Churchill and all things Churchill that he felt, well, this is...
And getting all the wrong bits of Churchill,
yeah,
unfortunately.
Exactly. But he felt, this is the mode I need to go in. I put on the front and I tell everyone it's going to be okay.
But Churchill would embellish, Churchill would put best foot forward, but the lying came from Boris Johnson. That was not... Churchill would put things out as best as he could. I don't agree with a lot of what he did with Churchill 1940, absolutely, but Boris Johnson was not Churchill.
No.
He was just a liar. And his own party, if you think about it, if you get an 88 majority and then to get pushed out by your own party in 2.5 years is almost impossible.
It's an achievement.
It is unbelievably difficult to do. You have to be lying so much and so hard and not give a damn about anything that happens. Your own party says, you just won us the biggest election. Get you out of here. Yeah. That is so odd.
But I mean, he was always a sort of ticking time bomb.
Yeah, you just track it back, he was lying when he was an early MP, he was lying to the leader of his party at that point, he was lying to his people he worked for when he was a journalist. He was just swimming through the lies. The rest of his family didn't seem to be quite like this, but he was obviously, and even at school.
Yeah.
He said, and it was, if I lie enough, I can get away with it. And the speed liars, as we should call them, maybe, because if you do one lie and then you say, that is a terrible, oh, you've gone on to a second one. The first, oh, I'll do the second, oh, no, you've gone to a third lie. Hang on, hang on. And there seems to be no political consequences or no consequences to overt political line. Now, everyone embellishes, but it's overt political line. Blue is green, black is white, pink is yellow. And no, we need to hang on to something, especially in this 21st century.
But you have political aspirations.
Yes. I'm gonna keep pushing until I can become an MP, just like Glenda Jackson. And I've done 2 selections, and Betty Boothroyd did 14 before she became.
And is your aim to bring that brand of truth back into politics?
I wouldn't wrap myself around I am the truth, because I think, it's everyone tries to put their best foot forward.
But you are unashamedly yourself.
Yes, I try to play with a straight bat. I try to be as upfront as I can. In politics, you often get choices which are between a rock and a hard place. That's very difficult, but I try and be straight with people. And when Boris Johnson was doing his Bullingdon Club year, the 85, I was coming out. I think my year was a much more honest year, productive year, positive year than his was.
A bit more realistic.
But then somehow he got to be a prime minister. You thought, well, that's not leading humanity in a good way. Not a good example to our children. So I'm gonna keep. I have determination. I have energy. I have analysis. I can communicate, and my world vision is that everyone in the world has the right to a fair chance in life. So I think that's a pretty.
The
good
issue,
world vision.
though, with you becoming an MP is you'd have to stop doing all of this.
Yeah, well, like Glenda Jackson.
Yeah,
no biggie.
So you wouldn't lament not being able to get on stage.
Well, it goes into hibernation. If you remember, Glenda Jackson came out and straight back on the West End, straight to onto Broadway.
But I mean, it was 20 odd years of hibernation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how long it would be, but it's whether with this thing floating back to the 1930s, it's whether we human beings want the world to head progressively forward, positively forward to the 2030s, or to fly back to the 1930s. And some people are dragging us back to the 1930s, and the rest of us want to go forwards.
But what I love about you is that you don't appear to have any barriers. You will look at something and go, all right, I can do that.
I don't think anyone has barriers, but we make barriers in our heads. So yes, I have worked out that people might say I'm doing multiple things. It's actually just in the teenage years there were a few things I wanted to do, as anyone does have, and I've decided to push on all of them. But it's only about 3.
But
it seems like it's more. I mean, the running multiple marathons, raising money for charity, that's great, but that's not it's not a career. But it's a good thing to do.
It's a lovely thing to do.
Anyone can do that.
I don't know whether I'm built
if they chose to do it. No one's built to do it. But if you choose to do it, you could do it. It's not like there's no barrier there.
But it's like you look at it and go, all right, I can do that, but how do I turn the volume up on that?
How do you mean?
So for example, it's like lots of people of note run marathons for charities and whatever. And go, no, I'm going to run 49?
Well, it was 43 and 51 was the first one.
43 and 51.
27 in South Africa.
And the 27 was related to the amount of years that
Nelson Mandela
was in prison.
I thought he was in prison for 27 years. I could give 27 days.
And then there was the other one where was it 31 and you did a gig every night as well?
That was in lockdown, yeah. That was 32 and 31 days.
Yeah.
So.
I mean...
Well, that, if you're trying to break through with everyone doing lots of things, and especially if you think how media is fragmented, it used to be 2 channels. If you're on that channel, then everyone would see it.
But do you ever want to look, after having done all of that, do you ever want to look at a pair of trainers again?
Oh no, well it's got to be for life. It's match fit for life.
So you still stay incredibly fit?
Well, I try and stay as fit as I can, but sometimes you're working so hard that you can't get out and do the running that you want to do. But it is good for me. It's good. These bodies are made to move. If you think what we are, we're designed to be hunter-gatherers. What have we become? We've become watcher munchers, cake munching computer watchers.
Something is going to happen now. I'm going to hand you the Spooning with Mark Wogan Blindfold. We've got the fetching leopard print one this week.
Okay.
And we're going to pop that on, and I'm going to feed you your first spoon.
So what have I got to do?
You just put that on, and I will.
But what have I got to do when I eat it?
You just need to tell me what you're experiencing, what flavours you got. Can you see anything there?
No, I get a bit of light, but not really.
Okay, so I'm going to slide this first plate across, and I will feed the spoon to you.
Okay.
So we have the first one here. And
I generally have a great fear of food. because I've trained myself on sugar. So everything, because I think sugar poisons the taste bud. So
Here we go.
so what is it? This is just food.
It's just food.
Just food.
It's food. I'm not serving you anything other than food. So open wide.
But
It's just there. A little bit wider. There we go.
all of it.
Well, you don't have to have all of it. There we go. That's enough. Probably you can get a flavour of it there. So what textures are you getting? What flavours are you getting?
That was quite scary actually, because I thought it was going to be, because you're showing me all this chocolate. I thought it was going to be a sweet taste. So I thought, no, that's not. Is that a mushroomy thing?
No, not even close to a mushroom. Take the blindfold off. Now, one of the things you said was a horror for you was macaroni cheese.
No, not macaroni cheese. Macaroni and warm milk.
So what, you have the macaroni in warm milk?
Well, this is what they did at the school. This is what me and my brother decided was hellish torture. Decided to flush down the loo.
So, because I thought it was macaroni cheese and then you had to drink warm milk with it.
Put macaroni in, swim it around in warm milk, then try that.
Yeah,
I don't know how anyone got to that thing. Now, macaroni and cheese is fine. Why is it thinking mushrooms?
Very strange, because that's the interesting thing, is when you remove the site.
It does a spongy thing of mushrooms.
Yeah. But when you remove the site, you remove so many preconceptions as to what you're actually going to eat.
Okay.
Do you like that? Would you eat
well,
more?
that's just
You would
pasta,
eat,
isn't it?
Yeah, we just eat more of that. Lovely Mayfair mac and cheese.
Macaroni and cheese is fine. I've had macaroni and cheese, and I thought, oh, that's okay. But macaroni and warm milk, try it at home. Anyone at home, try it.
It's a terrible idea.
And one kid liked it, so everyone was pushing their, or he was saying, I'll have yours. And he took a load of it in, and then later on he brought it back up.
So it was almost like warm, weird cereal you were fed at school.
It didn't even hit cereal, because cereal is a big joy for me, because it's mainly sugar, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know what, it was just, and I quite like milk, but warm milk, no. Hot milk, less so. Cold milk, loved cold milk. So if it'd been macaroni and cold, no, I still wouldn't have. I hadn't tried pasta. Dad wasn't. So Mum had passed away. Mum didn't do pasta. She probably thought I couldn't deal with pasta. She was very good with me. I said spinach at one point to Mum. Spinach, I've seen Popeye. Spinach. She said, you won't like it, you won't like it, you won't like it, you won't like it. Spinach! And then I tried spinach. Went, pah! This is horrible. No more spinach. Why'd you give me spinach? Dad said I would do brinkmanship with Mum. I think I just would demand things and was a real pain in the ass.
What was school like for you?
Well, it was fine until we went to boarding school, and then Mum died, and we were crying a lot. I was clinging on to my brother. He was clinging on to no one, and it was so that was from age of 6 to 18. I was at boarding school.
Because your brother Mark,
he does the adaptations.
Yeah, you're very close. I mean, my brother and I work together. We have businesses together.
Right.
So
it can be tricky, yeah?
Yeah. It has its moments.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is, I find that you can have these flare-ups, or you can sort of look at each other and know that flare-up's coming and decide whether you go that way or not.
Interesting.
And as we've got older, we just tend not to go that way anymore. It's just not worth it.
I don't think we hit flares. Well, the great thing is Selena Cadell is the director in Hamlet, so if I have a third person in the mix, then that makes everything fine. And if both of them feel I should be doing Hamlet in a certain way, then I will be doing it that way.
We have someone called Amy, who is our third person in the mix, who works with us and sort of navigates the demands of us two, and then sort of is the one who actually makes it happen.
Right.
Yeah. But are you ready for your next spoon?
Which is a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing altogether.
Okay. So I got to put
it's
this
back on
then?
with the blindfold.
Okay.
I'm going to move that one out of the way.
Alrighty.
Here we go.
You're going to just give me the handle.
Do you want to feed yourself? Are you finding
I
me
think so,
feeding you
yes,
a little strange?
That's
Okay,
that's not what humans do.
This is there's the handle of the spoon. There we go.
Okay.
You're the first person to feed themselves.
Okay.
No touching.
Well,
You can't touch it.
I need to see how big the mouth has to be.
It's big.
Why are you making such big?
Speak to chef. I didn't make it.
I find these very difficult to take in because I want to taste it rather than.
There we go. Right.
Is it mushrooms?
No
I'm
mushrooms.
going to just set it up.
No mushrooms.
There's a crust of some type.
Yes.
I have to work out what it is, yeah?
Yeah, just tell me what you think you're eating. What are the flavours that are coming through?
I can't tell. This is it. My palate is terrible. I have the worst palate in the world.
But you see, when we blindfolded you that whole thing of what you think your palate likes and doesn't like is thrown out the window. Because if you take the blindfold off now, that's a spinach croquette.
Oh well. I can eat spinach. But when I was 3, I think it was tinned spinach.
Oh,
That was probably fresh spinach. And
I wasn't aware they put spinach in tins.
do you remember Popeye?
Yeah. Oh yes, of course. But I never experienced that. That was always confusing to me as a child. Why was his spinach tinned? Because I never saw it.
That
in
was
tins.
the way. I think it was a wartime thing.
Yeah.
And everything was tinned. It was, a way to keep it to last. And oh wow, so that was spinach. Yes, and I wouldn't have sensed that. I still can't taste the spinach. I feel it's the croquetteness of it. But yeah, spinach not good when I was a kid. Later on, you can have. I can have a spinach salad. I can. Well, they do buttered spinach, don't they? Which is
creamed spinach.
Yeah, which seems to be essentially butter with a bit of spinach in.
Yes.
I mean,
fat equals flavour. So if you add fat to anything in the form of butter or cream or whatever, you're going to improve it.
I've also been told that I'm not supposed to eat spinach because it makes kidney stones.
I've had those.
But apparently this.
Have you had kidney stones? I mean, when I first had them, I thought, I'm not sure you're supposed to be in this much pain and live. I didn't know what it was. I was in the middle of nowhere in France as well.
Yeah,
just hanging on it to the edge of a sink, crying.
Yeah, I had no pain.
You had no pain?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't quite know why.
But how did you know you had kidney stones?
It was something a bit achy.
A bit
And I
achy.
went and they did the scan and they said, you've got a ton of stones in.
I think outside of the tenacious side, there is a bit of you that doesn't feel pain. With all the sort of marathon running, the kind of holding on to the dream.
It could be the genetics of Neanderthal. But we all have between 1% and 4%. Even the Queen had between 1% and 4% Neanderthal. Which I kept saying in the documentary I did, and they kept cutting it out. They repeated it a million times. They didn't want the Queen. No, the Queen cannot have Neanderthal. We all have between 1% and 4%, because I believe they were the dominant ones in Europe, and then the Homo sapiens came in, and then there was sex and all fighting. And
talking of royalty, the King is a fan, isn't he?
I hope so. I'm a fan of his. He's got a great sense of humor. I mean, he was doing goon type sketches, and when I did a Princess Trust gig that he came to in Wembley, I wanted to use that little video of his to show the audience, that remind them this is the sense of humor that the person who's now the King has. But unfortunately, the equerries around him blocked that, and he was really pissed off about that because he was quite happy for it to be used. So he does have a good sense of humor, and so that is, I think, is an essential ingredient of a human being.
Would you hope to be at some level by royal appointment?
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, within his files of people that if he wished to have an audience, you'd be on it.
No, I don't think I do it that way, but it's because I'm not really into I'm not into hereditary privilege, but I think he's had the patience of a saint waiting for it. I did think that Elizabeth should have abdicated earlier and handed over, like a lot of the monarchs did in Europe, and he should have been allowed to get to the throne earlier. I don't know why this enormous wait until he was 70. And I think him and Camilla are going to try and do as good and as positive job as they can. And, he was already doing organic farming. He was doing the Prince's Trust. He was trying to do things. Climate change, he was way ahead of the curve on that. So he's been trying to do things in a different way for a long time. And it is a system that we have in our country. So I think he should be there as long as he wants to, because he's waited long enough.
But would you not say the same thing for William? Because, I mean...
Yes, I'm not separating it out for anyone else, but our point is purely with Charles. I'm just talking about Charles.
So if you were to achieve a position in government,
right,
where would you stand on the Constitution?
Well, it's good that we have an unwritten Constitution, and what you mean? Do I want a written Constitution?
Yeah. Or would you see us moving more towards a sort of republic and the monarchy not being seen held in the same position as they are now?
I'm not the idea, the institution of hereditary privilege. I don't go for, but we have it, and I think to unpick it, there's a lot of political energy you would need to do that, and I think Charles is going to do a great job there as a head of state. So I'm not going to push on that situation. But as it is, that's not where I'm going into politics for. That's I'm just saying he's waited long enough. Let's see what he can do. He's already done positive things when he was heir to the throne, so let him be in there. And he's just had to wait, just like Eddie Seven had to wait for Vicky to get off the throne.
As a sort of figure head, in a sense, of the trans movement before it was even the trans movement.
I don't think I'm a figurehead. I'm just a person who's been open for a long time.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's sort of open about it before it was even something the wider public even were beginning to understand. Where do you think it sits now as, because I always find in this country is an issue comes up and we go, the pendulum goes woof that way, and then eventually it finds its position of comfort.
Yeah, that might be true.
Do you think we're anywhere near a position of comfort around it?
Well, in a way better position. The most people that I meet in the streets seem to be very happy that I'm being my own authentic self and just existing, and I'm not going around asking people in the street, could you please help me on this? I'm just saying, I'm here and can I have a cup of tea? You sell tea? Excellent, I will have a cup of tea. Thank you very much. And they all seem fine with, the people I meet do. People say there's a lot of heated conversations happening now. When I came out, there were no conversations at all about it ever. Not one. And so we have come a long way. If you think before marriage equality happened, people were saying, men marry men, women marry women, then cats marry dogs. Oh my God, what is going to happen? And then we've gone through to a much more positive place where marriage equality is there. And now if you listen out for the big negative right-wing arguments, they've just gone away because it's about love. And this is the thing, it's...
But I think, I mean, obviously it's difficult for you to say, but from my point of view, I mean, you truly did pioneer it in a sense. I know that's maybe the wrong use of words.
I was early to come out and say that, this is the truth, but people came before me, and they had to go through their very tough time. So,
but there was a comfort and ease with which you approached it.
I did feel that if I could be out and open and honest about it, I could get to talk about it, and I could talk about it being trans in a loose and relaxed way. And, I could put it into my stand-up and just say, you go into a shop and some shopkeeper might go, well, oh my God, you are trans. The look you have is different. I wasn't expecting this. And then I say, well, can I have a Mars bar, please? And they say, well, a Mars bar? You want to buy a Mars bar? Yeah, I want to buy a Mars bar. Well, how could that be? Because you're trans, surely. No, how, and I just say, no, I've got some money, I'd like to buy them. Oh, I see. Oh, that's fine, because and people just jump to some weird, I was trying to show the crazy things that go into people's minds, and then they go, oh, yes. Because if you talk, that everyone just relaxes. I just have a chat with people, or just talk to people. Hi, how are you? Oh, yeah. So, but most people now are just much more hello. Well, I'm known to an extent in a number of countries around the world. So,
But I think also people are accepting of the fact that you will continue to do things differently and continue to challenge yourself or bring yourself forward in a different way. And I can't wait personally to see you do Hamlet. I think it will be fantastic. And it is on from the 23rd.
23rd of May.
So from today.
So it's from today, 23rd of May,
today,
until the end of June, the last day of June, at the moment.
And it's going to be at the Riverside Studios in Hammersmith.
Yep.
And if people want tickets, they go to Eddie Izzard Hamlet.com. You've even got your own website for it.
Yeah, that's what happens these days.
I wish you every success. Not that you need my wish, because it's already been a success, and I'm sure it will continue to be a success.
I hope so. The British critics will decide what they think, but it's already in a very good place.
Well, break a leg,
Thanks,
as they say. That's it for Spooning this week. I thank Eddie for being my guest today, and I will be joined next week by another very special guest, where, of course, the team here at the Mount Street restaurant, headed up by Jamie Shears, will be cooking up food they think they love and they think they hate. And if you're stuck for things to do this summer, you can come and see us do Spooning live at the Pub in the Park festivals over the summer. You can get your tickets at pubintheparkuk.com. Come and see me make a mess of this actually live. This podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts from. We're also on YouTube as well, so you can watch this if you are listening now. Go and look it up on YouTube. And until then, I will see you lovely people next week, and I would like you to stay beautiful.